What's going on, conscious creators? Welcome back. I am your host, Cosmic Christos, and today we have a really interesting topic. Today we're just going to be discussing spiritual warfare of the heart. These three spiritual diseases of the heart consist of narcissism, sexism, and racism. But before we get into these three spiritual diseases, I just want to talk about the importance of one's heart in your spiritual development. A lot of people in the spiritual community, in my personal opinion, overlook the cultivation of one's heart. And I think that this is really what makes the difference to me in people that are actually seeking to better themselves spiritually, emotionally, mentally, is the cultivation of the heart. And to me, it's really easy to fall into a pitfall on your spiritual journey of egotism. And I see this very commonly in the spiritual community. This is honestly one of the reasons why I stay away from talking about astrology so much on my channel, is because I feel as though a lot of people only value things that concern the ego, the self. Now, there's nothing wrong with the ego. There's nothing wrong with the self. However, we also have to embrace the collective, the spirit as well, because we're all one spirit. With that being said, you have to understand why your heart is so important in cultivating your spirituality. The heart is the center for emotion and having emotion, having empathy. The heart is also the center for guiding your intuition. The heart is also the center for your desires. So anything that you desire, whether it's positive or negative, it all comes from the heart. And if you ultimately want to know the state of a man, you just have to look at the state of their heart. So even when you go back in time and you look at Kemetic science and you look at a lot of the traditions that they had in Egypt, as far as when you died or when you passed over, you would have to go see Osiris. You would have to, get your heart weighed against the feather. And this was for a divine reason, because if the heart was still heavy, then you wouldn't pass over. You would be stuck in this matrix. And I also feel as though this is the reason why the gospel of Jesus Christ focuses so much on the cultivation of the heart. Because even when you look at the word earth is heart backwards. So it goes to show you that there is a correlation between the earth and the heart. We are here to cultivate our heart. We are here to beautify this planet. We are here to love each other, love creation, and love the creator. So if we are not loving and operating on one of the highest frequencies in the universe, then we are only limiting the creation, the evolution of our conscious, of our species as a whole. So this is why I want to talk about this topic today, the spiritual warfare of the heart and its origins. Now, narcissism has definitely become a culture within American culture, I should say. And the reason being is because, in America, a lot of people value their image. They value what they can show, what they feel like they can prove. And the more that you can show and the more that you can prove, the more that you can win people over, the more that you can deceive people. And that's ultimately what, a lot of social media has boiled down to, is the art of deception. It's not really the art of personality anymore. And that's why a lot of people are getting exposed on these platforms for not being who they proclaim to be, is because we are in an illusionary or deceptive state of social media. And do I think that this will last for a long time? Not really. I do think that more people will come to their senses, but I think it's only going to happen through understanding these spirits and how they work. And this is why I honestly promote and teach self-awareness, because self-awareness is the first stepping stone to your spiritual journey. It's realizing that, hey, I'm not obsolete from these spirits or spiritual diseases, and that I also need to make sure that I'm doing heart checks within myself to make sure that I'm not having an ego high. I'm not blind to my own shortcomings and faults, and that I'm not valuing myself over the collective at large. So I think that, we always need to be checking our own ego. We always need to be checking to see, how can we grow from our own self-inherited narcissism, from culture to our upbringing to, just society as a whole. pushing us in that direction to just be more self-centered. Now, another thing is that there's a lot of inauthenticity on social media. There's a lot of people who are trying to be something that they aren't. And it kind of goes back into what I just said previously, but that's really all the spirit of narcissism can do. When you go back to the story of Satan, Satan said that he would imitate God, that he would copy everything that God would do because he wasn't a creator. And this is something that I've been saying a lot, you know, the new earth or the new world that people are looking forward to or looking to see manifest, it has to be created. This is why there's such an emphasis on people not being creative anymore. This is why they want you in a 9-to-5. This is why they don't want you to use your mind and think outside of the box. They want you to think just like the next person, is because once you become a creative, you become a God, and not in the literal sense of God, but a God of manifestation. You can create new realities. You can shape new realities. And that becomes dangerous in a world where they don't want people creating. They don't want people using their mind. They don't want people thinking. So they really want you to be just like the next person, which is why they give you celebrities. This is why they give you idols to worship, is because they want you to be like them, not like yourself. And there's a power in being yourself. A lot of us don't really understand the power in being yourself. That's what makes you unique. No one else can be you. No one else can, you know, go through the experiences that you went through. No one can express yourself the way that you can express yourself. So this is what you need to value in today's time. You don't need to value possessions and things like that. You should really value your personality, what makes you authentic, what makes you different, what makes you unique, and not you try to hide it because it's not quote unquote accepted in society. That's really just my personal recommendation, is just really strive to be more of your authentic self every single day. Don't try to be someone that you see on TV or in the world or on social media. Just try to, you know, unravel different layers of your being through being honest, through being sincere, and being self-aware. Now, some ways that we can heal from our own self-narcissism is through practicing humility, accountability, and vulnerability. Now, the first one, humility. How does one become more humble in essence? Honestly, this starts with charity. This is why Jesus talks so much about really being a person of service. He said that the greatest amongst you is a servant. There was also a young, rich individual that came to Jesus and said, you know, how can I believe he was saying, like, how can I get into the doors of the gates of heaven or something like that? And Jesus said that you need to give away all of your possessions, you know, and walk with God. It was something of that nature. And what he's really insinuating is that you need to become more charitable, because nothing in this world is going with you to the next life. So that's one of the ways to break up some of that callous on the heart, is through acts of humility, putting yourself in environments that, you know, you probably normally wouldn't frequent, and really just seeing the oneness in both sides, because we all have a story, you know, and this can be through volunteering. This can be through charity. This can be through any act of service that brings you to a level where you have to see eye to eye with people. So really just practicing humility. And you don't want to do this openly. You still don't want to make sure that your ego is involved. Sometimes people try to practice humility while having their phone out. And it's just like, that kills the whole point. This is why Jesus said, don't let the left hand know what the right hand does, because you don't want to be praised for your acts of humility. You want to practice humility in private as much as you possibly can. But my recommendation is just really try to commit yourself to something that can make a difference, something that can help you see the other side of the coin that you may not have, you know, necessarily seen before. The next thing is taking accountability. Really start taking accountability for all your shortcomings. Take accountability for situations that you put yourself in. Take accountability for boundaries that you didn't allow yourself to have. And it's okay, because we're not perfect. We have to make mistakes in life, but we can only grow according to how accountable we hold ourselves. The less that we hold ourselves accountable, the less likely we are to evolve into that future version of ourselves that's healed. This is something that I feel as though has really allowed me to appreciate a lot of the things that I have been through in life, not just look at them as setbacks or anything like that, but really value and appreciate the things that I have went through with myself, with other people, because they really molded me into the person and the character that I am today. Next is practicing vulnerability, because after all of the heartbreaks and the shortcomings and disappointments, a lot of times we become hard. Our heart becomes hard. We don't really know how to love. We don't know how to let anyone in. And it was funny because I saw a guy, he speaks a lot of truth on social media. He was just saying sometimes that when we get hurt, we build walls so high that we can't even let good love in. And I believe that is so true, because I do think that a lot of times when we get hurt by people, we don't want to let anyone else in. We don't feel like anybody has a love that is worthy of our healed version. There's a quote by Hazrat Khan. He said that God breaks the heart again and again and again until it remains open. And I think that that's so profound, because it's true. Like, when you really think about it, like, God wants us to have an open heart. God wants us to know what it's like to even experience some of the things that he or she may feel. You know how many times we may disappoint our creator by things that we do? So if we can't handle, the disappointment of people in this state, how could we evolve into a higher state or level or being of consciousness and not experience disappointment, that may anger us or whatever, So I just think that that's something to really look at, when we really think about our creator, however we perceive our creator, we have to think about all of the things that we do as human beings that may necessarily disappoint or, cause our creator to look down upon us in some light, which I don't really think is true, but I'm just saying it for context sake that, just put yourself in God's shoes, or try to at least. That's really like one of the ways that we can heal, is really just to seek God's reflection and not man's approval. I think that's the most important thing, is that you just really just have to strive to be a reflection of God, not try to validate or prove anything to yourself or man. Just really do it for the collective, do it for the oneness, do it for everything that is in existence, because everything is connected to you. Now, the second spiritual disease of the heart is the wound of imbalance, sexism. Now, like I said before, sexism is something that's been around since the beginning of the times. And I feel like even when you look at the story of Adam and Eve and sexism, like, to me, sexism was almost there in a way, like, not in a way where it was like the blame, but like humanity took an aspect of that and ran with it. Like, men really looked at women as the scapegoat for sin, and in turn that created 400, 500, 700 years of oppression of women. Even still to this day, there are countries that oppress the physical beauty of women. So sexism goes well beyond our current times. It's something that's honestly embedded into the fabric of human beings. I think that everybody has a degree of sexism in them until it's, addressed, I should say. So let's just define what sexism is. Sexism is the division in the divine design, a rejection of the sacred feminine or masculine. It's rooted in fear, control, and insecurity, not strength or wisdom. Galatians 3:28 points, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Now, those were some very powerful points, especially the biblical reference where it says, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ. So on a heavenly plane, on a heavenly level, on a spiritual level, we're all one. You're not, just divine masculine or divine feminine. And I think that's something that's really taken the spiritual community by storm, is, so many people, or a lot of women, I should also say too, clinging to this whole concept of the divine feminine. And I think that this is like the new ushering in of like feminism in a way, is, in the spiritual community, is the divine feminine, the surge of the divine feminine. And no, I'm not, knocking any woman who promotes or advocates for the resurgence of the divine feminine energy. I just think that there is a balance. You don't really see those same women also saying, hey, there needs to be a resurgence of the divine masculine also. So this is what I mean by, sexism takes form in many different ways, because it all goes back to the ego, the sense of self, who you believe that you are. But when you limit yourself to only just one fragment of being and just saying, hey, I'm just a female, or I'm just a male, or I'm just this, and I'm a human being. I experience both masculine and feminine energies. A lot of people haven't embraced that totality or that wholeness within their being, and this is something that's keeping a lot of people stagnant within their spiritual development. Let's just talk about the history, though, of just well documented suppression. Honestly, even when you go back into America, women weren't allowed to vote in America until the 1960s. So that goes to show you that sexism is something that's still a shadow within human society. And I think that this is why the tables are turning in 2025, why a lot more women feel empowered, is because they just experienced the past, century being oppressed, not being able to work, not being able to vote, not being able to drive a car, not being able to be the head of a household. So now that the tables are turning, yes, there is an imbalance. Men do feel out of place. Women do feel a lot more empowered. Now, how is this going to come back into balance? It's going to come back into balance through self-awareness, understanding that, hey, we're all capable of the same things. As we can see, a woman is capable of providing for herself. A man is capable of nurturing and taking care of things around the house. No one is superior to the other. It's just that we need each other. Both energies thrive when they are working in unison.